How's it going, everyone? Back with another discussion with one of my favorite guests. Itssanitoeter, and we're back to discuss spoilers from the Brothers' War and how it'll impact modern and pioneer in our respective beloved mid-range decks. And as you noticed, we got a nice little fancy logo on the bottom right. Credit to Sandy for his nice Photoshop skills. But we're here to discuss some spoilers. Sandy, are you excited to discuss these cards and ready to go move forward with this?
I'm very excited, and I hope we get at least like 50% of them right this time.
I feel like our success rate with these spoilers are not that great, so hopefully we can get on the right track with this for sure. Let's just get to it, right? The first card that we're going to discuss is Mishra's Research Desk, if you want to take it away, because this is a red card, technically.
It needs a red card. So this is a 1 mana artifact, which is important because my vision for this is Urza's Saga target. So it's an artifact that says 1 and tap, sacrifice it, and exile the top 2 cards of your library. Choose one of them until the end of your next turn. You may play that card. So this is basically like the light up the stage and whatever the other one is called, just for one of those. So you get a selection. And the important part for this card, I think, is it has Unearth. So this is the first time we see Unearth on non-creature cards. And this has Unearth, 1 and a red. And basically, this means for 3 mana in total, you get to do it again out of your graveyard. And yeah, so I'm potentially seeing this in Modern as an Urza Saga target. The only thing you gotta ask yourself is this better than Mishra's Bauble and Brainstone? I think those are two of the cards this compares to. So what's your opinion?
I think this card's really good. I'm actually really jealous because I feel like red gets all the good Saga targets. You already have Pyrite Spellbomb, and I think this is a card that can easily slot in. You do bring up a good point where, is this better than Mishra's Bauble? I think the fact that you have card selection makes this at least worth a second thought, right? I think it's probably better than Mishra's Bauble because of the fact that it has Unearth. So you get two um, chances at card selection for the top two cards, and it's not a delayed draw. Like there's often times where like, oh, you need an answer, and you top deck a Bauble. So I feel like Bauble's better in the early turns because you could like thought seize and then you can like bauble trick yourself, or you can bauble your opponent, get information for your thought seizes, etc., etc. I think that's where Bauble's probably better. But once you get to that mid to the late game, I think Mishra's Research Desk is a lot better because A, you have the mana for it, right? Two mana when you top deck it versus 0 mana is night and day in Modern. But the fact that you can also unearth it is so good. I think this card will see played in any red Saga deck.
I'm not so sure because, so in my view, this is on average about a Brainstone. Brainstone digs you 3 cards deep, and you have the chance to go like 3-4-0, quote unquote, since you put away 2 of your bad cards. And Brainstone doesn't see any play whatsoever, besides like, I mean, a few lists here and there. I know that Spike was very high on Brainstone at one point, but like it doesn't see any play whatsoever. This has the advantage that it's only 1 mana on the front side. So you can go like turn 3 this into a 2-drop, something like that. Or with 4 mana, you top deck this and play a 2-drop immediately. So this is like just marginally better than Brainstone, I want to say. I'm not so like, I think this is on the edge of being playable.
But I think the 1 mana activation versus the 2 activation of Brainstone is so huge though. Because 2 mana activated Brainstone is just like, because you're paying like overcosted for the actual brainstorm effect once it's in play. Once you tutor for it, right? Versus this is like the same rate as a light up the stage if you tutor for it. So
I mean, I guess, like, I certainly think that Brainstone is the better effect than this one. So it kind of makes sense that it's more expensive. But yeah, like I could see this seeing play, but like only as a saga target. I don't see like this as just a random inclusion in your deck at all.
oh, absolutely. Like I think this is just at most a one of. Like I don't think because like Bauble is a card that you can easily play up to 4. Like this is a card where I think you play max 1 as like I feel like your saga targets are locked in the sense that you have Shadow Spear, Springleaf Drum. Sometimes you have a Yard Hate, Spell Bomb, or a Lantern. And I think this is like that 4th target. I feel like some lists run like that one of Mishra's Bauble if you're not playing 4, just have like 4 saga targets. I think this is where it slots in.
Yeah, probably.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move on to I think the next Ursa Saga target.
Yeah, this is a card that
And
I'm
that's for you.
actually I'm really excited about this card. This is 1 mana Haywire Mite. It's an artifact creature insect. Again, this is on theme with the saga targets. And when Haywire Mite dies, you gain 2 life, and you can play green and sacrifice it, and you exile target non-creature artifact or non-creature enchantment, and it's a 1/1. This card is really, really good as a saga target and just as a card that you can just play. Historically, I've always played these type of effects with Kasali Pride Mage, Caustic Caterpillar, Outland Liberator, and now this is I feel like a strict upgrade because you can tutor for it with Saga, and in itself it's just like so much cheaper. Like you pay 2 mana, it's on rate and naturalized versus all the other effects that all the cards I mentioned are 3 mana. So the fact that it's just an extra mana cheaper is so clutch. And the exile effect matters a ton because you can exile opposing Cauldras. And now, like, you can have a Haywire Mite in play and hold a green mana, and if your opponent ever tries to play a Saga, you can just exile it, and it's just, like, way more efficient to do because you can just play this on turn 1. The cons is I play Cauldra, so it exiles my Cauldra, so it feels a lot worse, especially against opposing Saga decks. So it'll be interesting to see how the meta shifts and if Hammer, for example, do they shift to green white? And will they play stuff like Gaddock Teeg to stop Leyline Binding? Will they play this and be able to exile my Kajros? Like that's kind of the main concern. But that being said, just being able to have again a turnable saga target, you can carry a sword from Azan's perspective. Like this card has a lot of potential. I think this is at least a solid one of, maybe even 2 in the sideboard because you actually don't mind drawing this type of effect either. It's just a good on rate card. So I'd be interested to hear your thoughts and if you think this card is as good as I think it is.
Well, I don't think I'm as hyped as you are. So I certainly think this is a one-off in the sideboard for sure. I'm not sure if you actually want to run this main deck, since you could have run something like what's the card called? The Exile with Kicker Black.
Oh, Terra Sunder. Terra
Um,
Sunder.
Tear Sunder, yeah. You could have run Tear Sunder already, and you just didn't do it. So I don't think this will be a main deck card. On the other hand, now your sagas actually are useful against like something like Hammer Time. So, whereas like I could at least grab Pirate Spellbomb, like what did you get against Hammer? Shadow Spear and hope for the best?
Yeah, I guess from Abza's perspective, the Hammer matchup does definitely get significantly better because of this. Um, I
Yeah, so I think I want to run this at least as a one of in the sideboard, just as something to grab off Saga. Like the funny part is, I don't know why is there you gain 2 life on that? Like why?
I don't know. Magic is everything is just adding more text to these cards nowadays, for
Yeah,
sure.
that's my impression as well. So I wouldn't mind boarding this in against Burn because like Worst case, you can target itself. Oh, sorry, you can't. I'm stupid. You can't target itself because it's a creature.
I mean, it exiles Eidolon when you tutor off Saga,
Yeah.
and they've
Although
been
you can just kill it somehow, run
yeah
6 ping, something like that,
yeah.
if need be.
I mean, I don't know if I don't think boards in Roiling Vortex against you, but like since I'm a batter skull, oh like they should right because you have Shadow Spear. Like this card can just exiling Roiling Vortex is just so clutch too in that matchup.
Yeah.
Um, I
They also like they bring in rest in peace and stuff like that against me, even though they shouldn't, but like they do.
yeah, true. I don't know how much I agree with not mainboarding it. I'm not saying I will immediately. I think because with the new set, meta changes. I think I want to see how the meta shapes up, and if Leyline Binding is as popular as it is, if Saga decks are popular, if Hammer Time, like I think this is a good meta call main deck card depending on what's being played, right? If Hammer, if Creativity, if these are like top tier, like the most popular decks, I think Haywire might make room in the main deck.
Yeah, maybe in non-Jund Saga midrange, because like I'm just playing Bosejus and that's that.
That's that's true. That's true. I mean, at most, I think this is a solid one in the 75. I think that's kind of like the overlap where we can agree.
I would agree with that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, the next card is again on theme with saga targets. If you want to take away,
So this is Clay Revenant, also a 1-drop artifact creature golem. It enters the battlefield tapped, but it has 2 and a black. You can return Clay Revenant from your graveyard to your hand. It's a 1/2, and right away I want to say I don't think this will see play, but I think it's like interesting as a design, because from a mid-range perspective, you always want to have cards like you can just randomly throw at your opponent over and over again. And this just doesn't die. They're 4 mana, well, let's go again. It's a 1/2, which is not irrelevant because it doesn't die to random 6 pings. But like that's a minor corner case. So I think the design is interesting. I don't think this will like end up seeing play. I like the card. I don't know about you.
I mean, this is interesting because it is a saga target that is what's like the skeletons, like the ones where it just constantly comes back. Like I'm kind of disappointed that this isn't a skeleton because it would be on theme. I guess it wouldn't be an artifact creature, but I agree with you. I don't think this will see play. It comes to play tapped, which makes things awkward too. So we can't really block immediately either. I think it's cute. I I don't know how it would see modern play. Honestly, I think the fact that it's just a vanilla 1/2 body isn't good enough. But it's weird. It's crazy how these one mana creatures have been pushed, as you said, as we've discussed. They just keep adding text to it. So
Yeah, I think that's all that's to Clay Revenant.
mm-hmm.
Don't think there's any secret tech with this, so let's just move on.
I was pointed out that you're gonna I was you when you suggested this card, I was like, am I missing something here? But we can go on to the next card, I guess. So this is a card that actually piqued my interest for Modern again. Because ever since they banned Yorion, I haven't been paying too much attention to the format. But I've been playing Modern a lot more recently. Um, and this is one of the major reasons why this card, not that I think it'll see play, but this type of effect is makes white kind of like a contender. I feel like historically you play Abzan for the great cyborg cards, and recently like Collector Oof is now added to green. Stony Silence isn't releasing play anymore. Rest in Peace is very detrimental to Tarmogoyf. But this is a type of effect where I think it'll depend on the meta, of course. But I think being able to exile graveyards for 2 mana at instant speed is a nice catch-all based on Kaya's Guile, right? Like Kaya's Guile is a great card against Livia because they don't expect it, right? It's not like an onboard heat piece. Um, but the second clause where players can't cast non-creature spells this turn is really interesting against certain decks. I.e. Cascade, just being able to essentially counter a Cascade spell is really, really interesting. And then it has a little bit more splash ability in this and across other decks because there's often times where you can thought seize your opponent and then like a control opponent and they have like a verdict or a walker, and if you can just upkeep Calamity's Wake them, it might have a shot. It seems a little loose in that specific matchup because you need your resources. Your cards need to be resources, but at the same time, this is kind of a cool effect to where you might be able to stop something, stop a wrath, stop a planeswalker, try to get under them, etc., etc. So I think this card's close in terms of a sideboard card. So Sandy, I'm kind of interested to hear your thoughts. If
I want to add to this your suggestion to upkeep this against control. Orange chance effect leading to bad decisions since 2001. So yeah, I don't think this will be a case for the card. I think it's interesting because it's such a wide variety of decks you can hit. I like my sideboard cards very flexible. You can board this in, like, if Storm ever gets a deck again, you can just bring this in. This is very good against Storm. So yeah, I like the effect. I think it's too expensive to see play. Like 2 mana, even though it's instant speed, I cannot see myself like relying on this as for example Graveyard Hate. But then again, like I'm playing Ashiok, so I don't know. Like it's close. It's I think it's give or take. Like it could see play, could not see play. Certainly something on the short list you should keep your mind on.
yeah, I think this is a card that's just nice to have. I feel like saying this term where it's like it's just nice to have in like our toolbox. I feel like when you have a BGX collection, it's not 75 cards. It's like 150 cards, and you just have to be flexible with moving these cards into your sideboard. And this might not ever see play depending on the meta, but it's just nice to have this type of effect, like a versatile, like they said, like a versatile silence effect with flexibility is cool because we there hasn't been a silence effect that can also hit graveyards. Like this is a lot more flexible. I think it is. I know recently you've been playing Hollowed Moonlight. I don't think this card is as flexible as that card, especially because Hollow Moonlight cantrips. So that card is just it's tough to compete against that card. But if there's ever a world where Hollow Moonlight doesn't do anything and this card does, this is kind of a nice swap in the sideboard.
I would agree with that. Also, random advice. That's hashtag SaniFinance. So Hallowed Moonlight non-foil, 10 cents. Hallowed Moonlight foil, like 28 euros. So if this card ever takes off, you want to have your foils ready.
Pre-order these Calamity Wake spoils. Get 4. Alrighty. The next card you suggested to go over this, and this is a really interesting card if you want to take it away.
So this is Misery's Shadow. It's a 2 mana creature shade. If a creature in opponent control would die, exile instead. So this is basically Dorothy Voidwalker style effect. And it has one colorless. Misery Shadow gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So this is clearly a homage to the old Shadows we were seeing. Like back in the days, you had to play black and they were 3 mana 2/2s and didn't have an exiled clause on them. So personally, I think this is more for Pioneer and not for Modern, because I can't see like Dorothy Voidwalker is barely good enough for Modern. I think Dorothy is just better than Misery Shadow. So I definitely could see this seeing play in Pioneer. I'm not sure how much value the exile clause has. There are like Phoenix has creatures caring about the yard, and like against mono green, you kinda. I mean, they have some creatures that you'd rather exile. So I mean, it's just an upside, and this is a beta. Like this is kind of like scavenging ooze, I want to say, where you just sink all your mana in and like go face. So that's that.
Yeah, I think this card. I'm glad you mentioned Pioneer. I feel like we spent the first, part of these cards on Modern. I think this is again. I agree with you. A Pioneer card. I think this card is great. A, because like you said, mono green, being able to Dreadbore an Ogre Troll or a Cavalier is really huge, really, really, really huge. Because that's how you lose the game if you can't deal with it when it goes to the graveyard. Because if you kill an OGT, it comes back to play, and they still have the devotion for green. Um, so I think this is an effect that will probably be like maybe a 2 of in Rakdos, depending on how much room they have. It's so hard to make room for cards in Rakdos nowadays because the card quality of that deck is so high. Um, I think another aspect that I kind of would touch on is like budget aspect. And I know Cletus is a really expensive card now. I don't know how expensive this card will be, but it's kind of cool to have an alternate that's still good. I think this card isn't embarrassing to play. So if you can't afford Cletus's, this is kind of a cool card to sub in. A, it's cheaper too. So like you can curve this 2 drop into killing OGD, where it's sometimes strictly better if you want this exile effect. So I think that's just something of note too, where it's kind of a budget alternative, but like also a card that is actually might actually be a main deck stay. So it'll be interesting to see how play this card sees in terms of a 2 drop effect that you care about exiling, because if Modern Green stays popular, if they don't end up banning Karn or Nykthos, like Modern Green's here to stay. Like this card, that deck is really good. So again, like from I play black green in Pioneer, and Scavenging Ooze is a house. Just being able to exile an OGT after you kill it, or a Cavalier, that's night and day. Like that flips the matchup. So Bractos having that effect probably adds a little bit more percentage points their way too.
Yeah, so I compared this to Scavenging Ooze initially. So glad you agree with that, like they're kind of filling the same role.
It doesn't
All right.
it doesn't exile Storm the festivals like once they cast it, which is kind of the downside. But if they're going off with Storm, you're probably losing anyway. So
Yeah, I agree.
yeah.
Been there, done that.
All right, so
All right.
the next card is an interesting one. It's Loran of the Third Path. It's a 3 mana, 2 and a white, legendary creature, human artificer. This card is crazy because it's essentially a Reclamation Sage. It's when it ETBs, you destroy up to 1 target artifact or enchantment. But it also has Vigilance. It's a 2/1, and it also has an extra ability tacked on where you and target opponent both draw a card, which is like Reclamation Stage has come so far. I saw this card and I was like, this is a lot of text, and it's in white, and it's in a human. Like I know humans hasn't seen him play recently, but if the humans ever comes back, just being able to destroy a saga or something is really good, which is crazy. And then when you play this card, and if you really are desperate for answers, you will activate this ability. So like that ability is just a cherry on top. And has Vigilance. Like this card is crazy. I think this is a card that I think it's difficult because we just got Haywire Mite. So if you're playing a Saga deck, you're gonna play the Mite over this card, in my opinion. Assuming you're like a BGX Saga deck. Absent, I guess, because it's a white card. If you're not playing a Saga deck, this card is a cool one of. It definitely competes with like Outland Liberator, because they're both in total 3 mana to destroy something. But again, just Vigilance and the tacked on ability is very pushed. So I'm interested to see your thoughts as well.
I think this compares to Night of Autumn because it's the same size, it's the same mana cost, and it has like the disenchant effect and then random other stuff that you're probably never going to use. So yeah, I think this compares to Night of Autumn, and I'm glad you caught it that it's a human, because humans, when they were last around, were playing Night of Autumn. So this is just, if human exists, they want to play this one. That's my thoughts on them. So I don't see this seeing play unless you need the human tribe, because like Night of Autumn already exists.
That's fair too. And I guess Night of Autumn is more versatile in the sense that it gains fertilizer, you board it against burn. Um, if there's no artifact, like if you don't have a target, you can just make it a 4/3 and it beats hard, right? So I think that's a good comparison. Um, I guess like the thing is like if you're playing Orzhov or something, you could this is where you wouldn't play Night of Autumn, but that's like splitting hairs, right? So this next card, you brought this up. I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on this.
So this is Awaken the Woods, a green X sorcery, which basically creates X Dryad Arbors. That's the entire text of the card. So I think this is interesting because this is a design we never had before. You could not generate lands out of nowhere. You could scapeshift for them. You could like search out them from your deck, stuff like that. You could like wish for them, I guess. But like this is just plain creating lands, also creatures. But like let's face it, you're not using them as creatures if you're playing this card. So that's why I think this card is interesting. I'm not quite sure if it's good enough. So I can see this in obviously scape shift lists where you just like go X times 3 damage with Valakut and Dryad of the Elysian Grove. And this gets around Ashiok and Shadow of the Artifacts. So
So
what about you?
this is interesting because once you get to 4 mana, this becomes better than rampant growth, right? Because if you make 1/1/1, your off rate. Once you get to 2, it's essentially like an explosive vegetation, where you just get 2 lands. And then once you pass that, so like once it's 4 mana, you're either on rate or better. And yeah, I'm really glad that you brought this up because it's interesting to hear that. Like, yeah, like the fact that you can ramp like land creatures is interesting because you can make blockers as well as maybe win cons and kill someone with escape shift. I don't know if this will see play because it's very clunky. I feel like if you want your ramp spells to be ramp, you want them to be cheaper. Search for Tomorrow, a Boreal Razor, etc., etc. So I don't know if this will see play, but it's definitely, like you said, a unique effect. I think this is an EDH card, 1,000%, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
But I, you're bringing up good points that it might. It's definitely a use case, right? It'd be interesting to see. I don't know. I've never played Scapeshift. I don't pay attention to the archetype. I don't know. I can't give a good opinion on it, but it'll be interesting. It'll be annoying. Just like if they just make chump blockers with against our Tarmogoyf, if we don't get Shadow Spear, it's like it's definitely annoying.
Like I mean, like the worst, like just as you mentioned, the worst case is like they have 6 mana. Here are my 4/1/1s. You're up.
They're trying to be like lingering souls, which are very annoying from a mid range perspective, right?
This is pretty close to Lingering Souls territory. Like Lingering Souls is 5 mana. This is 6 mana for 4/1/1s,
Mm-hmm.
and your Lingering Souls token don't tap for mana.
Yeah, true, true. Yeah,
So I think like this card is on rate. This is not overpriced or anything like that.
no,
The only question you gotta ask yourself is, do you need the effect?
yeah, because like I don't know how much I don't know how often you've played against Scapeshift recently, but historically, Scapeshift players hard cast Search for Tomorrow for 3 and get a forest supply. So you're right. This is on rate. You're not. It's definitely not overcosted. That's for sure.
Yep, I think that's everything to this card. Like, I'm interested in this card.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if this sees play, if it's good, I don't know. I
Mm-hmm.
I really can't tell.
Mm-hmm.
It's the first kind of this effect.
Mm-hmm. So these last two cards have prototype. So this is the white one. This is Combat Thresher, 7 mana. Prototype is an interesting mechanic because it's a 7 mana 3/3, but you can pay the prototype cost, and then it becomes white, and then it becomes a 1/1, but it still keeps the other abilities. So it has double strike, and when it ETBs, you draw a card. This card is notable strictly because I guess from my own personal perspective, it's an artifact. So any artifact, you kind of gets an extra boost because it grows the constructs, right, with Saga. I've always wanted to build a Saga deck with Solitude in it because free spells, you have to have a really good reason not to play these free spells from MH2. I wish this card in itself was a white card because then you could pitch to Solitude, but it's not. However, if you're gonna play Solitude and Ephemerate, Stoneforge Mystic, etc., this is a really interesting one because this is a nice Ephemerate target. You just redraw a card. B, it comes back as a 3/3 with double strike, so it has the Fury body and it could beat harder. And in that sense, you can strap a sort of Fire and Ice to it and it becomes a real threat. Um, I don't know how good that deck will be. This is again just me kind of brainstorming in a deck that you want to try out. But it's interesting just because it's card advantage and this kind of fits nicely with that ephemerate game plan. So I wish this was white so I could pitch it to Solitude, but it's not. So that's kind of where my reservations are. So and just to hear your thoughts on that kind of deck building philosophy.
So I can definitely see where you're coming from with your idea, and I think this is hot garbage. Like,
Okay.
why would I do all the hassle to like play this for 3, then ephemerate it just to get a 3/3 double strike? Like, why would I do that?
Well, you ETB. You get to draw cards, so it's value.
I see. I mean, so if I were to play this, this would be in a Flicker deck, like
Yes.
with the Charming Prince, Flicker Wisp, the enchantment you get at this card.
No, touch the spirit one.
Basically, all about those Flicker effects. Because, like, let's face it, a 3-mana 1/1 double strike draw card is not good enough for any format.
True. Good point. Good point.
Yeah, so you basically would need to abuse the big body, and the problem is the big body is just a 3/3 that just randomly dies to a bunch of stuff, like Tarmogoyfs, for example.
Yeah, fair.
You get to cantrip, which is nice, but like, so I can see where you're coming from, but I think this is just not it.
I guess we'll see. Like, I'm not expecting it much. Again, it's just like an ephemerate target that also fuels Saga is kind of where on paper it fits the role. But yes, 3 mana is definitely expensive for a 1/1 with double strike. But this is the last card actually that we want to go over. And it's again one of the black prototype. It's Phyrexian Fleshgorger, which is also a 7 mana card. But you could also pay 3 mana, one black and a black to make it a 3/3. If you pay 7 mana, it's a 7/5. But the abilities are has Menace, Lifelink, and Ward pay life equal to Phyrexian Fleshgorger's power. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this card. I know I'm the one that brought this up. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on it first.
So I think this one is better than the white one, because like the body is just more relevant as a prototype, and like it has relevant keywords like Menace, Lifelink is just good. Let's face it, like a 3/3. So if this was just a 3/3 Menace, Lifelink for 3, this would already be good. Like certainly in Pioneer, this would be good enough. So like this card I can see more. And like what I initially thought of this cards is Tron actually, because they have kind of a fail mode when you don't get to Tron.
I mean, this one's a little harder because if you want to play the cheaper effect, it's double black. Uh, so I guess you're saying like the green one would might potentially see play.
I still don't know what the green one does.
It's I think a 3/3, and then you can like sack it, and then you make a token that's triple the power.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
remember.
um, so that's a good point. Like maybe you're right. Like I think that's kind of a cool idea for like you said a failsafe, just a kind of just a body you can just throw out there, and then it ends up being a really good win condition. Um, the Flesh Scourger I was actually thinking for Pioneer. Um, I don't think this will see modern play, but you're right. As you said, Menace Lifelink very very relevant. Ward is where I think this card shines. Um, because at least from like Rakdos perspective, you can run Bone Crusher Giant, you can run Shield Druid, you play this card. Just on rate 3 mana 3/3, and if you want to answer this card, you have to pay 3 life, is a lot of damage you're inflicting to yourself from a mid range perspective if you're trying to interact with your Rakdos opponent. And even like just from a rock perspective, just a lot like you're already running Trespassers, which drain. You can play Shield and Rock too. Just this card has a lot of text, and with how battlefield centric Pioneer is, Menace is huge. And Menace and Lifelink means you can essentially just attack and then race your opponent and essentially just win the race or just force combat in your favor because they need to hold 2 creatures back to block this. Versus if your opponent doesn't have any menace, you can just 1-for-1 block, right? So these kind of combat interactions matter a ton. So Menace and Lifelink are just a great combination with this card. And then at the end of the day, if you have 7 mana, you just slam a 7/5 and you have to pay 7 life to deal with this card is kind of crazy. So I think this card has a lot of potential. I think the only downside is the 3-drop slots in both decks are very congested with Trespasser, Liliana, Bone Crusher Giant, Fable the Mirror Breaker. There's a lot going on in that slot for that cost. So that's the only downside is there's just a lot of competition for this card.
Yeah, I think the competition is the biggest issue because, like as I said, like 3 mana 3/3 Menace Lifelink, you would play this. Like if it's an absence of the other 3 drops, you would definitely play this. Like this is a good rate, and this is just the upside of being of like growing in the late game, like treated as kicker, for example.
Yeah, did they call it a reverse kicker? Is what they called it. I think the only thing about this card in paper is how the hell do you keep track of it? Like, how do you say this is the prototype version? Like, I don't understand how you do that logically.
I have these glass beans that I used to do for elks with Oko, and I would just put one of those on these.
It just seems like a nightmare from like if you're just to just go into a game, like you know, like they do coverage and they just go into a game. It'll be interesting to be like, oh, is this a prototype or is this like a non-prototype? You know, just it'll be kind of funny to do that.
Maybe they have like they had tokens for Morph and Manifest, so maybe they have just a reminder, like this is a prototype.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like a little black box thing or something. But yeah, that's the last card. Overall, I'm really excited about the set. I think the set has a reasonable power level. Nothing is too egregious, but power level enough to where there might be some cards in Pioneer, some cards in Modern that are really, really, really exciting for BGX decks. I don't know how you feel about if you echo that.
I'm most excited about the Haywire Mite. I think like this is the only slam dunk I can see.
I agree. I think Haywire Mite is just another tool to have just in general. Like, for example, like against Living End, you can tutor for it. Exile, like, assuming you already have a Soulgate Lantern, just being able to just take out a Leyline of Sanctity, for example, is just so huge. So,
Right. I think that's wraps it up, right? Unless you have some more cards in your sleeve.
no, I think that's it. If you want to plug your socials, go on ahead.
Now I have to get it straight. So you can follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Itssanitoeter. You can follow me on Twitter or at Gruber_Benedict. And you can now follow me on YouTube at Itssanitoeter is my YouTube channel. So I think they will be like somewhere down in the description. And that's where you can find me.
Yep, all that. I think the info was like scrolling on the bottom of the screen as well. But all your socials will definitely be in the description. But thanks for meeting me again with do this. This was again a lot of fun. We'll see how many misses we have. Hopefully we have more hits than misses here. And hopefully Haywire Mite is as good as we think it is. So we're definitely putting all of our eggs in that one basket for sure. But again, I really appreciate everyone tuning in for hanging out and watching. If you want to give us any feedback on this type of content, please let us know. This is definitely fun for me to kind of go over cards with Sandy. A great mid-range player. Definitely check out his content. I'm a huge fan of his play, his content, his deck building philosophies, etc., etc. So definitely check his content out. And I guess we'll see everyone next time for when the next set comes out. And hopefully, again, we have a better, accurate prediction of those cards as well. So, everyone, take care, stay safe, stay healthy, and catch you over next time.